Mr. Brown and Mr. Smith live in two apartments located in two different places in the same condominium. It's winter and it's very cold. Mr. Brown's apartment is on the top floor, below the roof and along the building's perimeter. The system is not balanced very well and Mr. Brown is cold because the fan coil installed is not able to reach an acceptable temperature. Mr. Smith's apartment instead is in the centre of the building, surrounded by other heated apartments, and is less subject to the dispersion of heat because of the limited number of windows to the outside. The internal temperature is perfect. Desperate, Mr. Brown has no other choice but to call a plumber. The plumber can only improvise a solution, go to the boiler room and increase the flow rate of the circulator and modify the temperature of the supply water to the boiler. The immediate effect is a temperature increase in Mr. Brown's apartment, who believes all his problems have been resolved. But what happens? After the adjustment by the plumber, the temperature in Mr. Smith's apartment went up. Now it's too hot and Mr. Smith is forced to open the windows. Now both apartments have an acceptable temperature, but with a lot of waste. And that's not all. The plumbers increased the pump's flow rate, so those who live in the apartments near the boiler room will immediately notice the change. Too much noise, especially at night. Mr. Brown and Mr. Smith's satisfaction doesn't last long. The first utility bill after the plumber's visit is extremely high. This is the result of an unbalanced system. To resolve all the problems once and for all and to eliminate waste, a professional solution must be adopted. A qualified heating and cooling engineer will examine the apartments in the condominium to determine the heat transmission characteristics, which are different for every environment, and thus obtain the properties of each fan coil. Using special calculation instruments, the heating and cooling engineer will determine the size of each valve. Using the heating and cooling engineer's indications, the plumber can then install the balancing valves. The various valves are then installed in all the apartments in the building. The installer can thus reduce the flow rate of the circulator and return the water supply temperature to its initial setting. Each valve is then adjusted by means of the Cimberio metering device. The two tubes of the metering device are connected to the valve's pressure fittings, and the opening of the fully open valve is progressively reduced by turning the plastic knob. The ideal adjustment is reached when the display on the metering device has the same flow rate as that given in the heating and cooling engineer's design. Now Mr. Smith is no longer forced to open his windows. and the people in the apartments near the boiler room can finally go back to sleeping peacefully. A correct balancing allows the system to operate in a highly efficient manner. This translates into energy savings and greater respect for the environment. Cimberio products help you achieve these objectives in a simple and economical way.